Good morning, folks. The real Captain Kirk here, live from Weather Trends 360 studio here in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. It is Monday morning, the 29th of April. Only a couple days left here. April's going out like a lion here for the upper Midwest here, where they had several inches even around Chicago here this past weekend, and a spot there in, I guess, southwest of Wisconsin, almost 6 inches. So, again, a little snowy out there, and then here this morning we're still lingering with the remnants of that cold blast. A little bit of frost and freezes here in the northeast. Actually had a little bit of frost outside WT360 studio here this morning. Looking at the world overall here, just kind of recapping April with only about a day or so left here, but looks like the U.S. trends here for April was the 6th warmest in 30 years, 4th wettest in 30 years, again, very wet. Good news is 9th least snow in 30 years, despite the big blizzard that went through the Midwest earlier in the month, and then again, a little bit of snow this past weekend. Tornadoes are way up, 227 so far here in April, up 75% versus last year, and quite a bit above average. Last year, this time was only the second coldest and second snowiest in 30 years across the U.S., so it was pretty epically cold. So dramatically changed toward warmer weather, at least, and less snow here in the U.S. for April. If we look at the world precipitation trends here for April, again, very wet, obviously, here in the U.S. and parts of Western Europe, but Eastern Europe and Siberia, some of those areas, Northern Europe, are still very, very dry. If we look at these trends here, again, just in a chart format here, again, you see the dramatic shift going from the second coldest in 30-some years last year, chart here on the left, and to about 1.4 degrees above average for April for the U.S. overall, and 4.8 warmer than last year. Again, 9th least snow, so the other spectrum of the snow went from second snowiest last year to 17% below average nationally this year and 58% less than last year. So again, April was a pretty good month if you like warmer and less snowy weather. Looking at this week here, last couple days of April into May, overall a little cooler than last year nationally, still 14th warmest, so kind of in the middle of the pack, about average nationally, 14th warmest in 30 years. Wetter than last year and third wettest in 30 years. So again, we continue these wet, stormy trends. And in fact, that a lot of that rain in Texas and maybe even Kansas area could be a severe weather outbreak here early this week. Certainly potential for some more tornadoes possible. Certainly some severe thunderstorms. Looking ahead next week, the first full week of May, again, cooler than last year nationally. Last year was record hot, so this year's cooler than last year and 13th coldest in 30 years. So a little bit above below average, actually, for the nation as a whole. Again, polar opposite, really warm west and cooler east. Again, wettest in 30 years. Last year was the driest in 30 years, so it's about as big a flip-flop as you can make, going from really, really dry last year to really, really wet this year. And again, got to watch out for more severe weather. Anytime you have a clash of cold and warm like that, you'd be concerned from the Texas to the North Carolina area for that rainfall you see in the southeast to be in the form of severe weather and tornadoes. So again, we've got to watch for this here in May. Could be a very active month. Looking at the temperature trends versus last year nationally, this is March, starting in March, where we start off really, really cold. These are the year-over-year trends. So again, we've had a dramatically warmer April. And the outlook here for the month of May is a dramatically colder May. Ironically, that little blip of warmer year-over-year weather for Mother's Day may not be too terrible. And then Memorial Day, again, cooler than last year. But if we look at these trends versus average, we think the cooler trends are probably the front half of May for the nation as a whole, and then a warmer back half as we get toward Memorial Day. So hopefully we kick off the summer season with a warmer trend there at the end of May. Not overly excited about a really hot summer this year in light of just how wet and ample the soil moisture is across the entire country with a record low drought. Looking at world May temperature trends versus last year, again, dramatically colder, as we're showing you here in the U.S. U.S. May trends, we're thinking about the 13th warmest in 30 years, but that's kind of in the middle of the pack. First wettest in 30 years, so very, very wet. Tornadoes way up over last year. Last year was, recall, the number one warmest in 30 years, 7th wettest in 30 years, and tornadoes were way below average last year. So this is going to be a dramatically different May, cooler, wetter, stormier, to say the least. Europe shows similar trends with the cooler trends. Look at the precip again, wet, green's wet, peaches and browns are dry, but very wet trends here in the U.S. For folks that missed our video last week, again, we did publish our hurricane outlook, and we're going to go on the low end. Recall last year we were on the high end of everybody and did really well predicting the major landfalling threats in the Carolinas and the Panhandle of Florida. This year we're going to lean low. We explained that in last week's video. So we're going to go with about 11 named storms here for the threat, but again, still very, very concerned about southeast Florida for a landfalling hurricane threat. If you're looking for something fun to do here this weekend, you probably want to check out the Halley's Comet debris field, kind of in the Earth's path here. So peak Sunday morning. Look for about 40, 50 meteors an hour or so. So the best time is this weekend, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, but the peak is probably Sunday morning after midnight to pre-dawn. Look for, again, about 40 to 50 meteors. And again, with a new moon, it'll be very dark out there, so there should be a pretty decent chance to see some of these. So with that, folks, hope you have a great week, and we will be back here this time next week.